All right, so you're telling me you're into criminal justice systems, especially investigative interviewing. Well, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into a report from the Office of the Attorney General of Thailand.
Thailand.
I know, right? But hold on. It's not about Thailand itself. They sent a team to check out police training in New Zealand.
Ah, interesting.
This report is gold. It's like peeking behind the curtain of another country's justice system, you know?
It is a pretty unique perspective.
They go deep on New Zealand's investigative interviewing, specifically the peace model training.
Right, the peace model.
And get this, it's not all just theory.
Oh.
The report gets incredibly detailed about the actual program, like even down to how the room's arranged. Wild, huh?
That is interesting. You don't hear about that every day. Why the room arrangement, though? What's the big deal?
Well, they set things up to be less confrontational, you see. It's more of a side-by-side kind of thing.
Interesting. I guess every little detail matters.
Totally. The report really emphasizes this experiential learning idea.
Makes sense.
They put officers through these mock interrogation scenarios, small groups. Gotta apply the peace model in action.
So learning by doing, basically.
Exactly. But having officials from another country observe all this, I'm curious, did they say how those Thai officials were involved?
Oh, they didn't just observe. They actually participated in the mock interviews, too.
Whoa, for real?
Yeah, they wanted to get a feel for the approach firsthand.
Talk about a crash course. Thrown into that kind of training with a totally different legal system, I bet that was intense.
It probably was.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the report so valuable. It doesn't shy away from the challenges.
Oh.
Yeah, it mentions that some participants even experienced Thai law enforcement. Found it tough.
I can imagine.
Especially with the pressure of being observed, you know.
Makes sense. Even seasoned pros, they get flustered, like that saying, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Though, in this case, it's more like a metaphorical punch of pressure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just goes to show how important this kind of training is. It's not just knowing the techniques. It's about applying them under pressure. For real.
Absolutely. Speaking of real-world application, the report mentioned something about New Zealand starting to record interviews way back in the 90s. Seems like that would add a whole other layer of pressure.
You'd think, right. But it turns out recording those interviews wasn't just about transparency.
Yeah.
It actually became a training tool in itself.
Now that is interesting. How so?
Well, by recording, officers could go back, analyze their behavior, and the interviewees.
Ah, I see.
They started to pay attention to nonverbal cues, body language, even those tiny micro-expressions. It's fascinating stuff.
It's like they unlocked this whole other level of training by really dissecting those recordings, seeing what's going on beneath the surface, you know?
Yeah, and the report makes a direct link between that focus on nonverbals and the peace model itself. Well, they use those recorded interviews, right, as teaching moments, showing how building that rapport using those specific communication techniques from peace, it helps get more truthful info.
So it's not just about catching someone in a lie, it's about creating the right environment for them, to be honest, yeah.
Exactly. And the report even pointed out some folks were skeptical at first, but seeing it in action with real cases.
Oh, so it's evidence-based, basically. That's really interesting.
It is. Speaking of interesting, they also talked about using e-learning.
E-learning? Like for police work? That seems pretty high-tech, honestly.
Right. You wouldn't expect it, but it makes sense.
I mean, I guess so, but how does it actually work?
So before any officer steps foot in a real training room, they cover the foundation of the peace model online, like the core principles, all that.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like laying the groundwork, then the in-person stuff can go deeper.
Exactly. Makes everything smoother, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone's on the same page from day one.
Yeah. It's like you wouldn't build a house without a foundation, right? And in this case, peace. That's their foundation for investigations.
Perfect analogy. And the report even talked about how this helps with different types of learners.
Oh, makes sense. Some people are better with online stuff. Some like the face-to-face.
In the online format, officers can go at their own speed, review things until it clicks. Really important with these techniques.
Absolutely. High-stakes stuff. But it's not all just theory and hypotheticals, is it? Didn't they talk about actual case footage, too?
They did. Thai officials observed New Zealand police analyzing real recordings.
Wow, real cases. What kind?
They mentioned a murder and a sexual assault, among others.
Intense. I bet those are incredible learning tools. Though, talk about pressure, those are some serious situations.
Definitely. The report really emphasized the meticulous prep work involved. It's not just showing up and hoping for the best.
So they plan out the interviews in advance, like a whole strategy session.
Exactly. Anticipating questions, thinking about roadblocks, even having backup plans depending on how things go, like next-level stuff.
Sounds almost like they're playing chess, not just having a conversation.
Great analogy. It takes a deep understanding of people, reading them, staying calm under pressure.
Right, because even with all that prep, things can go sideways fast. And let's not forget the ethical side. Especially in those high-profile cases, easy to cut corners when you feel the heat, right?
Absolutely. The report made it clear. The peace model isn't just about being effective. It's about being ethical, too. No coercion, no manipulation, no matter what. That really came through.
Makes you think about the bigger picture, you know? It's not just about getting a confession. It's about doing things the right way.
Exactly. And that commitment to ethics. It's especially critical when we're talking about sexual assault cases, particularly those involving children.
Yeah, those are incredibly sensitive situations. Did the report address how New Zealand approaches those specifically?
They did, and there was this one detail that really stood out to me.
It is. You always hear about those cases in the media, and you just hope they're handling them with the care and attention they deserve.
Absolutely. And this detail, it really gets at that. The report mentioned a shift away from using anatomical dolls when interviewing children.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you always picture those, right? Like they were just standard procedure.
They were for a long time. But New Zealand, they're encouraging other methods now, like having children explain what happened verbally or even through drawings.
I can see how that would be a lot less intimidating for a child to express things in their own way.
Exactly. It's about creating that safe space, letting them share without feeling pressured. And the report really presented this as empowering the child, letting them tell their story on their terms.
It's like even in those tough situations, they're finding ways to make it more humane, more focused on the individual. That's really something. You know, it makes you think about the whole system they've built over there. I mean, way back at the start of our deep dive today, remember how we talked about police and prosecutors working so closely in New Zealand?
Right. Having the prosecutors involved right from the get-go, that's pretty unique.
It really is. The report emphasized how that helps build stronger cases, minimizes confusion down the line.
Yeah, everyone's on the same page from day one.
Yeah.
That's got to make a difference.
Like having a co-pilot in the cockpit, you know, an extra set of eyes to catch something you might miss.
Exactly. Teamwork makes the dream work, as they say. Or in this case, teamwork makes for a more effective justice system, you know.
Totally. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? This whole deep dive into New Zealand's way of doing things, it's pretty eye-opening.
It really is, and it sparks so many questions, too. Like, could this level of collaboration work in other places? How do we adapt these techniques to different systems, different cultures even?
So much to think about. It's a good reminder that there's always more to learn. Sometimes got to look outside our own backyard to see things in a new light.
Couldn't agree more. Always pushing for improvement, right?
That's what it's all about. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive, I got to say. Thanks for joining me.
Anytime.